Hi guys, today we are going to find out, what if the Black Death had killed everyone? You're standing in what was once Times Square, but the neon signs flicker weakly above empty streets. The air carries an eerie silence broken only by the distant wail of car alarms. Bodies lie where they fell, victims of a plague so virulent it left no survivors. You probably won't survive this either, but let's explore this nightmare scenario together. The enhanced Black Death swept through every continent in mere months, its mutated bacterium unstoppable. No corner of Earth escaped. Not the isolated tribes, not the Antarctic research stations. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment below with your location and local time. Let's see where everyone's watching from. You witnessed the final chapter of human civilization, a species that conquered the world. Now, sit back and let's dive into today's alternate journey together. The last hospital generators are failing, their fuel reserves finally exhausted after days. You walk through Manhattan's concrete canyons where silence has replaced the symphony of human chaos. Traffic lights continue their pointless cycle of red, yellow, green for an audience of ghosts. Windows reflect nothing but empty sky as apartment buildings become vertical tombs. The subway system's automated announcements echo through tunnels carrying no passengers. Central Park's carefully manicured lawns already show signs of nature's impatient return. You notice how quickly weeds push through sidewalk cracks when nobody tends them. Skyscrapers stand like monolithic headstones marking humanity's final resting place. The Hudson River flows cleaner already without industrial runoff contaminating its waters. Pigeons and rats multiply rapidly, inheriting a city built for 8 million residents. You observe how the urban ecosystem begins its transformation within hours of abandonment. Street vendors' carts overflow with rotting produce, attracting swarms of opportunistic insects. The financial district's electronic tickers still display meaningless numbers to empty trading floors. You realize that without human maintenance, this concrete jungle will crumble faster than expected. Glass windows will shatter from temperature changes, and steel will rust in the coastal air. You discover that humanity's machines don't immediately realize their creators are gone. Factory assembly lines continue churning out products for consumers who will never come. Automated farming equipment harvests crops that will rot in unmanned storage facilities. Traffic management systems dutifully regulate the flow of non-existent vehicles through empty intersections. You hear the hum of data centers maintaining servers for websites nobody will ever visit. Elevators respond to phantom button presses, carrying invisible passengers between abandoned floors. Security cameras record endless footage of motionless hallways and empty parking lots. ATMs dispense cash to skeletal hands that will never spend another dollar. You witness grocery store checkout scanners beeping cheerfully at products tumbling from neglected shelves. Airport baggage carousels rotate endlessly, waiting for travelers who completed their final journey. Smart home systems continue adjusting temperatures and lighting schedules for families who'll never return. You realize these mechanical servants will faithfully perform their duties until power grids fail. The irony strikes you. Humanity's greatest achievement was creating systems that outlasted their makers. Within weeks, fuel shortages will silence most of these loyal digital companions forever. You watch as Earth's forgotten creatures emerge from their hiding places with newfound confidence. Deer venture boldly down Fifth Avenue, their hooves clicking on asphalt designed for human feet. Wild boar families root through suburban gardens, claiming lawns as their personal buffets. You observe wolves descending from mountain forests to explore the silent edges of Denver. Urban foxes no longer scavenge at midnight. They hunt openly in broad daylight. Coyotes form larger packs, emboldened by the absence of human persecution and noise. You notice how quickly birds change their behavior without cars threatening their daily flights. Songbirds nest in traffic lights while raptors perch atop abandoned skyscrapers, scanning for prey. Bears lumber through camping grounds, finally free to fish salmon streams without human interference. You realize these animals had been waiting generations for this moment of liberation. Raccoons abandon their nocturnal habits, raiding grocery stores in broad daylight like tiny bandits. Mountain lions pad silently through suburban neighborhoods, reclaiming territories lost to development decades ago. The natural world doesn't mourn humanity's passing. It celebrates with explosive population growth. You witness nature's patience finally rewarded as the greatest predator in Earth's history vanishes. You hear the haunting chorus of billions of pets crying out for owners who will never return. Dogs scratch desperately at locked doors, their loyalty becoming their tragic downfall. Cats prowl empty houses, their independence offering only temporary survival advantages. You witness automated pet feeders dispensing their final meals before running empty forever. Aquarium fish swim in circles, unaware their filtered worlds will soon become toxic graveyards. Cattle huddle in pastures, their udders painfully swollen without daily milking routines. Chickens peck helplessly at empty feeders while eggs pile up in abandoned coops. You observe horses breaking through fence lines, desperately seeking water and fresh grass. Zoo animals pace their enclosures, gradually realizing their keepers aren't coming back. The lucky ones, outdoor cats and hardy farm animals, might adapt to feral life. You see pet stores becoming death traps as automatic systems fail and temperatures fluctuate. Veterinary clinics stand silent, their life-saving medicines expiring on sterile shelves. The domestic bond between humans and animals, forged over millennia, snaps in an instant. You realize that humanity's closest companions become collateral victims of the plague's totality. You approach the ominous silhouettes of nuclear power plants standing like technological tombstones. Warning lights blink frantically on control panels that no human eyes will ever see. Cooling systems strain to maintain safe temperatures without skilled technicians monitoring their gauges. You witness the first reactor experiencing dangerous overheating as backup generators sputter toward failure. Automated safety protocols engage, but they're designed for temporary emergencies, not permanent abandonment. Steam vents release increasingly radioactive vapor into the atmosphere as containment systems deteriorate. You realize that Chernobyl and Fukushima were previews of what's now happening worldwide. 400 nuclear reactors across the globe begin their synchronized countdown to meltdown. The first explosion illuminates the horizon like a deadly sunrise over Pennsylvania. You watch as radioactive clouds drift on prevailing winds, poisoning vast agricultural regions. Rivers downstream from failed plants carry invisible death toward unsuspecting wildlife populations. Even the insects and bacteria will struggle to survive in these newly created exclusion zones. You understand that humanity's final gift to Earth is centuries of radioactive contamination. The atoms we split for energy now split the very fabric of life itself. You discover that the internet becomes humanity's most persistent ghost, haunting empty servers worldwide. Social media feeds freeze mid-conversation, preserving humanity's final thoughts for digital eternity. Automated news aggregators continue posting stories to audiences that will never read them. You watch as spam bots mindlessly send emails to inboxes that overflow with unread messages. Online gaming servers host matches between AI opponents in worlds devoid of human players. Streaming services recommend movies to empty living rooms based on viewing habits of the deceased. You observe how search engines catalog websites that document humanity's final desperate hours. Digital assistants wait patiently for voice commands that will echo through silent smart homes. Cloud storage preserves billions of photos showing families who thought they had unlimited tomorrows. You realize that every status update, every tweet, every post becomes an unintended epitaph. Banking algorithms continue calculating interest on accounts for customers who've reached their final withdrawal. E-commerce sites process orders for delivery addresses where only bones remain as recipients. The digital realm persists temporarily as humanity's most comprehensive archaeological record. You understand that when the power finally fails, even these electronic memories will fade forever. You witness Earth's climate systems responding immediately to humanity's sudden absence from the equation. Industrial smokestacks stand silent, no longer pumping billions of tons of carbon into the atmosphere. Air quality improves dramatically within days as pollution particles settle without constant replenishment. You observe how quickly smog clears from major metropolitan areas, revealing forgotten mountain ranges. Ocean temperatures begin their slow decline as greenhouse gas emissions plummet to prehistoric levels. Weather patterns shift unpredictably as the atmosphere adjusts to its first clean breath in centuries. You watch acid rain gradually neutralize as sulfur dioxide production ceases across all continents. The ozone layer starts its healing process without chlorofluorocarbon emissions threatening its integrity. Arctic ice sheets pause their relentless melting, though momentum carries them toward continued collapse. You realize that climate change was humanity's most enduring legacy, outlasting the species itself. Desertification slows in regions where industrial agriculture no longer strips soil of nutrients. Coral reefs begin showing signs of recovery as ocean acidification levels start to stabilize. The carbon cycle rebalances itself for the first time since the Industrial Revolution began. You understand that Earth's fever is finally breaking, though the patient has already died. You dive beneath the waves to witness the ocean's remarkable resurrection from humanity's toxic embrace. Commercial fishing fleets drift aimlessly as their GPS systems guide them toward empty ports. Fish populations explode without industrial trawlers scraping the seafloor clean of life. You observe how quickly plastic pollution stops accumulating in oceanic garbage patches. Marine mammals surface without fear of ship propellers slicing through their ancestral migration routes. Coral bleaching events become less frequent as water temperatures slowly begin to stabilize. You watch kelp forests expand rapidly in areas where they'd been decimated by pollution. Oil spills cease entirely as tanker ships run aground on automated piloting systems. The Great Pacific Garbage Patch stops growing for the first time in decades. You witness dolphins playing in shipping lanes that once thundered with constant maritime traffic. Overfished species like bluefin tuna begin their slow recovery from near-extinction numbers. Deep-sea mining operations halt, allowing abyssal ecosystems to heal from industrial scarring. Whale songs carry farther through waters no longer polluted by engine noise and sonar. You realize the ocean is exhaling centuries of held breath as humanity's pressure finally lifts. You watch as vegetation launches its most aggressive invasion since the last ice age ended. Abandoned farmlands transform into wild prairies within a single growing season. Kudzu and ivy scale skyscrapers like green armies conquering concrete citadels. You observe tree seedlings pushing through sidewalk cracks with explosive determination. Golf courses become meadows where dandelions defeat perfectly manicured Kentucky bluegrass. Suburban lawns surrender to native wildflowers that paint neighborhoods in forgotten colors. You witness forests reclaiming highways as asphalt buckles under root systems' relentless pressure. Agricultural monocultures give way to chaotic biodiversity as nature selects its own crops. Parking lots become wetlands where rainwater pools without storm drain maintenance. You realize that humanity spent centuries holding back vegetation's explosive potential. Rooftop gardens go feral, spreading seeds to colonize neighboring buildings with wild abundance. Desert regions bloom unexpectedly as irrigation systems flood areas without human regulation. The Amazon rainforest expands beyond its historical boundaries for the first time in generations. You understand that plants were simply waiting for their moment to inherit the Earth. You witness the rise of Earth's new apex predators as ecological hierarchies rapidly restructure. Brown bears venture into abandoned suburbs, claiming swimming pools as personal watering holes. Wolf packs expand their territories exponentially, hunting deer through empty shopping malls. You observe mountain lions padding silently down Main Street like they own the place. Tigers emerge from Asian reserves to explore cities their ancestors roamed centuries ago. African elephants march through abandoned villages, reclaiming ancient migration corridors blocked by development. You watch as great white sharks patrol harbors without boat traffic disturbing their hunting grounds. Polar bears wander south into temperate zones, following food sources into unfamiliar territories. Grizzlies raid grocery stores methodically, learning to open doors and navigate human structures. You realize these predators are simply returning home after humanity's brief geological interruption. Pack hunters coordinate attacks on livestock without human interference protecting domestic animals. Crocodiles reclaim river systems, growing to enormous sizes without hunting pressure limiting their growth. The food chain rebalances itself as apex predators control herbivore populations naturally. You understand that humans were never the planet's intended dominant species. You survey the expanding dead zones where nuclear meltdowns have transformed landscapes into radioactive wastelands. Pripyat's exclusion zone becomes a template for dozens of similar areas across multiple continents. Radiation sensors click frantically in areas where Geiger counters will never again read normal. You observe mutated plant life struggling to adapt to unprecedented levels of atomic contamination. Wildlife populations crash in these zones as radiation poisoning spreads through food chains. Radioactive dust particles drift on global wind patterns, contaminating previously pristine wilderness areas. You witness the creation of permanent sacrifice zones where life cannot survive for centuries. Underground water supplies become poisoned as radioactive materials leach into aquifer systems. The half-life of cesium-137 means these areas remain toxic for 300 years minimum. You realize that humanity's final act was creating Earth's most enduring environmental catastrophe. Birds drop from the sky as they migrate through invisible clouds of lethal radiation. Even bacteria and insects succumb to radiation levels that exceed all biological tolerance thresholds. These dead zones expand annually as wind and water carry contamination to neighboring regions. You understand that nuclear energy's peaceful atoms have become permanent monuments to human extinction. You witness evolution accelerating at unprecedented speeds as species rush to fill vacant ecological niches. Urban-adapted animals develop new behaviors within months rather than the typical generational timescales. Rats grow larger and bolder, becoming the city's new apex scavengers without human competition. You observe raccoons learning to operate simple machinery left behind in abandoned facilities. Crows demonstrate remarkable problem-solving abilities as they inherit humanity's complex infrastructure. Domestic cats hybridize rapidly with wild populations, creating new feline subspecies across continents. You watch as insects evolve resistance to pesticides that no longer threaten their survival. Fish populations adapt to cleaner waters, developing enhanced sensory capabilities in pollution-free environments. Plant species cross-pollinate freely without human agricultural barriers limiting genetic diversity. You realize that evolutionary pressure operates differently when the dominant species suddenly vanishes. Bacteria and viruses mutate rapidly in abandoned medical facilities rich with pharmaceutical compounds. Hybrid vigor emerges as previously separated populations reconnect across former human boundaries. Natural selection favors traits that capitalize on humanity's abandoned resources and structures. You understand that life finds ways to thrive even in civilization's crumbling remains. You soar above continents transformed into vast wilderness preserves within mere decades of human absence. The Great Plains become an endless sea of native grasses where bison herds roam without fences. European forests expand to medieval boundaries, swallowing abandoned villages and forgotten castles. You observe the Sahara's edges retreating as vegetation reclaims land without overgrazing pressure. Australian outback blooms with native species no longer competing against introduced European plants. The Amazon rainforest doubles in size, spreading beyond its historical limits into former cattle ranches. You witness African savannas healing as wildlife corridors reconnect fragmented habitats seamlessly. North American forests stretch unbroken from coast to coast for the first time in centuries. Asian tiger populations explode as their territorial ranges merge into continuous jungle networks. You realize that Earth's carrying capacity for non-human life was vastly underestimated. Migratory routes restore themselves as animals follow ancient genetic memories across continents. Wetlands expand into former agricultural areas, creating massive bird sanctuaries spanning entire regions. Mountain ecosystems cascade downward into valleys no longer divided by human settlements. You understand that wilderness was never truly wild, it was simply waiting patiently. You witness Earth entering geological timescales where natural processes begin erasing humanity's architectural legacy. Skyscrapers sway and buckle as their foundations shift without constant maintenance and repair. Steel beams rust and concrete crumbles under decades of freeze-thaw cycles and water damage. You observe ivy and tree roots dismantling buildings brick by brick with patient persistence. The Great Wall of China develops massive gaps as earthquakes and erosion reclaim mountain slopes. Dams burst under pressure from accumulated sediment and structural fatigue, liberating imprisoned rivers. You watch highways crack and split as underlying geological forces reassert their ancient dominance. Bridges collapse into rivers that carve new channels around these temporary human obstacles. Underground subway systems flood permanently as pumping stations fail and groundwater rises. You realize that humanity's monuments were merely temporary scratches on Earth's geological surface. Mount Rushmore's faces gradually erode away, returning the mountain to its natural contours. Nuclear waste storage sites breach their containers, adding radioactive elements to geological layers. Landfills become archaeological strata, preserving humanity's garbage for future civilizations to discover. You understand that Earth operates on timescales that dwarf human ambition and achievement. You imagine extraterrestrial archaeologists arriving millennia later to study Earth's vanished dominant species. Alien scientists puzzle over the sudden appearance and disappearance of human civilization's geological signature. They discover plastic layers in sedimentary rock formations, humanity's most enduring archaeological marker. You observe these visitors examining radioactive isotopes that date precisely to humanity's final century. Fossilized smartphone screens confuse xenoarchaeologists who struggle to understand their original purpose. Concrete foundations appear as mysterious geometric patterns scattered across all continental landmasses. You watch alien researchers debate whether humans were intelligent or simply successful parasites. They find evidence of rapid climate change followed by equally rapid ecological recovery. Dental fillings and artificial joints become the primary fossils proving human intelligence and technology. You realize that most human achievements will remain incomprehensible to future alien investigators. These visitors marvel at humanity's brief but intense impact on planetary geology and biology. Library ruins yield no readable texts, their digital storage having long since degraded completely. Alien anthropologists construct theories about human behavior based on surviving architectural evidence. You understand that humanity will become just another extinct species puzzling future scientists. You contemplate Earth's magnificent resurrection as biodiversity explodes beyond anything seen in geological history. Ocean dead zones disappear completely as marine ecosystems achieve unprecedented levels of abundance. Coral reefs evolve into massive underwater cities, teeming with species humanity never discovered. You observe bird migrations spanning continents without a single artificial barrier interrupting their journeys. Insect populations recover spectacularly, supporting complex food webs that dwarf prehistoric biodiversity. Mammal species reach population sizes not seen since before human agricultural expansion began. You witness plant communities creating entirely new ecosystem types in humanity's abandoned spaces. Genetic diversity rebounds as isolated populations reconnect across former human territorial boundaries. Predator-prey relationships stabilize into perfectly balanced cycles without human interference disrupting natural patterns. You realize that Earth's biological potential was severely constrained by humanity's singular dominance. New species emerge from hybrid vigor as previously separated populations freely interbreed again. The planet's carbon cycle achieves perfect equilibrium for the first time since industrialization began. Climate patterns stabilize into predictable rhythms that support maximum biological productivity worldwide. You understand that Earth without humans represents life's true evolutionary potential finally unleashed. You step back to view humanity's story from the vast perspective of cosmic time and space. Earth spins through the void carrying its precious cargo of life, indifferent to species that come and go. Humans existed for mere moments in geological terms, yet left scars that took millennia to heal completely. You observe how quickly the universe forgot about humanity's brief moment of self-proclaimed importance. Other planets throughout the galaxy likely experienced similar rises and falls of intelligent species. The cosmic dance continues unchanged whether consciousness witnesses it or remains forever absent. You realize that Earth's story is ultimately about life itself, not any single dominant species. Stars burn and die while planets persist, carrying their biological experiments across eons. Humanity's greatest achievement was perhaps hastening its own extinction through technological overreach. You understand that consciousness might be evolution's most dangerous experiment in the universe. Earth heals from humanity's wounds like recovering from a brief but intense fever. The planet's autobiography continues writing itself in stone, water, and living tissue. You contemplate whether intelligence inevitably leads to self-destruction across all worlds. Perhaps Earth's post-human chapter represents its true golden age, finally beginning to unfold. You float in the vast silence where human voices once filled the air with dreams, arguments, and songs. The Black Death's final victory seems almost gentle compared to the beautiful world it inadvertently created through humanity's absence. Earth spins peacefully through space, its blue marble surface unmarred by the geometric scars of civilization, hosting countless species in perfect harmony. You realize that humanity's greatest fear, extinction, became the planet's greatest gift, allowing life to flourish beyond anything humans ever imagined possible. The story teaches us that we are not Earth's destiny, merely one experiment among countless others in evolution's grand laboratory. Perhaps somewhere in the cosmos, other species learn from humanity's brief cautionary tale about the dangers of believing you've conquered nature. Earth's resilience reminds us that life finds ways to thrive long after those who thought themselves indispensable have faded into geological memory. In this alternate timeline, the Black Death becomes not humanity's end, but Earth's new beginning, a reset button pressed by microscopic agents of change. The ultimate question remains: if you could prevent this outcome, would you, knowing what paradise awaits in humanity's absence?